Hey there, happy Saturday. It is July 18th. I am Alexis Clemens, storm tracker meteorologist here at NBC Connecticut, and we're in our weather lab right now. We've got golf on I believe the British Open on NBC right now. So we are hopping on here just to talk about the storm threat. As of right now, I'm recording this at 9:25 in the morning Eastern time. We do not have any severe storms at the moment. However, we do kind of expect things to unfold as we go through the day. So I figured I would give you the latest on what we are expecting so that you can plan your day, because we're monitoring 2 rounds of storms. I think the second one is going to be a little bit worse, but the first one is already putting itself together. So let's go ahead and give you a look at what's going on right now. So what we've got for you here is a nice system, a very interesting setup for sure. And of course, if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below. But I want to talk about this setup because there's 2 different things that I'm paying attention to very closely. So the first one is going to be this cluster of storms in parts of Pennsylvania right now. There has been, I think, 1 or 2 severe warnings in the last couple of hours, but it looks like just a nice run-of-the-mill thunderstorm that is moving due east. So that's going to impact us over the next couple of hours. I think within the next about 2 hours or so, we'll start to see a couple showers and thunderstorms from the first round. The second round is much larger. That's kind of sitting up here, stretching from Toronto up to Ottawa. That is a larger and actually forming a line of storms that's going to be moving to the southeast. And the concern with this top one here, the second round, is that it's going to train over a lot of the region, right? And that's going to bring us a better chance for some really hefty rainfall amounts for certain areas. There's even a chance for some minor flooding, of course. And I'll show you a look at our flooding threat. I think it's really important to note that with these storms, while everybody will likely see a storm, it's only a couple select towns that would see that, excessive, those excessive issues, right? Think about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago was the 4th of July when we saw those storms, right? We saw a threat across the entire state. A lot of us saw those storms, but it was just kind of 1 or 2 of them that really impacted a couple of towns. So not everybody saw that damage, but everybody did feel the impacts of the storms. The impacts just kind of varied across the state, right? So most of the state under a level 2 risk for that rain to kind of train across the area. And if that does happen, I could see 1 to 3 inches of rain over parts of the region. That would be a good thing, because we need the rain, right? But if we get 1 to 3 inches in like an hour or 2, that's an issue. We need it to be, spread out over a longer period of time. So that's kind of what we're watching here. Again, we're just giving you the latest on how you can plan your day, because I do expect some dry time today, but there's also going to be times to stay weather aware as we go through the midday and afternoon hours. So I'll go ahead and step through this with you, because we have had some updates, even if you were with us this morning about 5:30 to 7 a.m. So here's the first round, okay? So right now it's dry. As we head towards, let's say, 11 a.m. or so, here comes some showers, but watch this. Kind of a couple of those little guys want to form and maybe create some quick, heavy downpours. Truthfully, I'm not expecting too much with this first round of storms. I do think some quick, heavy downpours, maybe some wind gusts and some lightning and thunder possible with this guy here. But that's the first round, right? Then I think we're a little dry this afternoon, maybe between about like 2 to 5 p.m. on the drier side. But don't put your guard down just yet, because we've got the main line of storms that will be on the way in the evening. After about 5, 6 p.m., take a look at those storms kind of moving into the region. These are the ones that I really am expecting to pack more of a punch here in terms of heavy rain, strong wind gusts. Unfortunately, and again, this is all to prepare you. It's not to scare you. The Northeast does have a threat for a few spin-up tornadoes. I do think that the biggest threat of that is going to stay to our southwest, but it's still in Connecticut, so we will have to keep an eye on that. I'll show you that in just a second. But we're going to track these storms, likely some heavy rain here. I mean, look at that. It's likely going to stick around from, let's say, 5, 6 p.m. to midnight. So that's a nice long period of time with potentially some heavy rain. So we could see some pretty hefty totals for parts of the region, depending on where those storms want to fire up. So that's what we'll track through about midnight or so. I can tell you right now, if you have any weekend plans, push them to Sunday. Tomorrow, the forecast looks spectacular. Absolutely beautiful tomorrow. We just have to get through today. Now, this is new at 9 a.m. today, or about 9:30 now is our time. So we've got a level 3 risk for severe weather. That's actually pretty rare for this area, and it stretches through a lot of New York, a lot of Pennsylvania, all of New Jersey, and just the little itty bitty tip there of Fairfield County. But the new information here for you today is that now all of the state is under a level 2 risk for severe weather. That's a slight risk for the weather nerds out there. That has changed. It was a level 1 risk for parts of eastern Connecticut. So that's definitely something new that we are monitoring now. We're kind of expecting those storms to be a little more intense, I think, in the evening hours, kind of the same time frame as what we saw last weekend, or I'm sorry, 2 weekends ago with the 4th of July. So I think that gives a better idea for that timing there, the evening hours. I would say as early as 5 p.m. and we'll kind of track that through about 11 p.m. midnight or so. This is what is very, very interesting to me and something to really keep in mind. Again, this is not to scare you. It is just to prepare you and show you what's going on. Do you see those lines right there in parts in like all of New Jersey, basically, over towards Philadelphia and New York City? That line actually means that we could see some pretty, we could see a couple of tornadoes track for a longer period of time, not just little spin ups. They could track for longer. That is not in Connecticut. I should make that known. But it's close. So something that we don't really see too often here. And I'm going to talk a little bit in just a second about our severe threat today because it's very interesting, and the smoke. We're going to get to all of that. If you have questions, throw them in the chat for sure, in the comments. But the tornado threat, it's a level 2 for a lot of the area. That's pretty high up there. Now, does everybody see that? No, but I think 1 or 2 could sneak on through, and something that we'll have to pay attention to through, I think, especially the evening hours here. And then damaging wind seems to be a pretty primary threat here. It's a level 3 and this is all on a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being the largest. So level 3 risk here, which is again pretty significant for our region. So something to keep in mind. I want to talk a little bit about the smoke and what's going on outside because we have, and I want to talk about the severe threat because it's different than most. Okay. So first of all, we've got some smoke moving back into the region. You can see it here. You can smell it, feel it, especially in southern Connecticut here. And we even have air quality that's unhealthy for some of us, especially in the New Haven, Bridgeport areas there. Definitely getting a little bit worse. It was gorgeous yesterday evening, but now that smoke has built back in, and now we're seeing this. So that is one thing that, a lot of people are like, is the smoke going to take away from this storm threat? Not necessarily. In a way, kind of, because we're not seeing a lot of sunshine. That would give us a little bit more of some energy for the atmosphere to work with, but we still actually have a lot going on. And I'm going to kind of explain this here. Let's see if we have any comments. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Smell the smoke. Yeah, unfortunately. And Ben was talking about the storm relative helicity. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on here. So this is like Meteorology 101. This is what we're taught in school. There are 3 ingredients that you need for thunderstorms, and that is moisture, lift, and instability. We've got the moisture today. It's going to be, we're seeing that humidity increase. We've got a lot of moisture at hand here. We can see that on the radar as well. Moisture, check. Lift, we've got, because what we need for lift, we need something to ignite these storms. And that is going to happen. The first round with a warm front, which is those storms that we're going to track during the midday hours. That's a warm front moving into the region, bringing us, again, more humidity, more wind, all of that stuff. And the cold front is also going to provide lift with this system as well. So that's what we're tracking for late this afternoon in the evening hours. So we've got moisture and lift, check. We've got all of that. Instability is where it's a little bit lower than what we would typically see during a thunderstorm, a severe thunderstorm threat here. So instability, typically we would need warmer temperatures, sunshine to kind of heat things up, bring us some more energy. We're not really seeing that with this system. That could be a good thing. That is a good thing, truthfully, because it's inhibiting these storms from being to their largest potential. However, we've got something going on, and again, getting very scientific here, so if you don't quite understand, comment, let me know. But what we have a lot of that's a little concerning is wind shear. Wind shear is when, let's say here at the ground, we've got a wind out of the south, to which we do, but a couple hundred feet above us, we've got a wind going in the east or the west, whatever you want to call it, right? That's what we call wind shear, because we've got winds not too far apart in height going in opposite directions. If they start to mix, that's where that rotation comes into play. We've got plenty of that today. So that is where the threat lies. So if a couple of storms can get going, which we're expecting, there would be that threat. So I hope I'm explaining that correctly. And I can even make more social videos about it to explain it if that would be helpful. But that's kind of what we're so not as much in the instability department, but wind shear and that mechanism is very much prevalent. So that's why we're a little concerned about any storms that do fire up today. While they won't have as much energy to grow, which would bring us more of a hail threat. So a hail threat's a little bit lower. They do have the potential to maybe rotate a little bit, provide some really strong winds. So that's why we have that as our biggest threat. All right, we've got some questions here. Somebody said we can smell the smoke. Good morning from Torrington, Naugatuck. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. We're in Hartford. We're hosting a backyard party starting at 5 p.m. Any insight would be greatly appreciated. Okay. Well, thank you again for joining us this morning. 5 p.m., you're definitely going to have to pay attention to the forecast for sure. As I was kind of explaining earlier, we've got 2 rounds of these storms that are going to roll through. And the first one, I think, is between about, let's say, roughly 10, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then we've got a period where it's going to be drier from like 2 to 5 or 6. So you have some time to get outside and maybe enjoy the day a little bit. It's still going to be a little smoky, but if rain comes through, it will feel a little bit better. But as we head towards about the 6 o'clock hour or so, that's when storms come back into play here. And the ones that we're expecting this evening are going to be really tough. So to Guy here, I would just really pay attention to the forecast, monitor the radar. Storms will be moving in from the north, so make sure you look there. As soon as you hear some thunder, any warnings that are issued, of course, you want to head inside. But where I'm going with that is you might be able to get some time outside early in the afternoon. So if maybe you want to ask people to come over a little bit earlier, feel free. But yeah, I'm kind of really monitoring that second round of storms that should start up by about 6 p.m. And unfortunately, once those start, they're going to stick around for several hours. So unfortunately, I do see issues coming with any Saturday evening plans. Like I was at the Greater Hartford Jazz Festival yesterday. It was a perfect evening for it yesterday, but they were talking about, today's going to be iffy, right? Sunday looks great, but today definitely some issues, especially after about 5 or 6 p.m. So something to keep in mind. Will it get bad in Griswold? We are in the marginal risk. Actually, Jim, I'll show you this right now. The Griswold area, all of Connecticut is now under a slight risk. So that has now changed. That's brand new information within the last about 30 to 45 minutes. I'm going to try my best to answer all of your questions. I'm also keeping an eye on anything that the Storm Prediction Center wants to send our way, which I haven't seen anything yet. So I do expect, anywhere in Connecticut could see some really tough storms. I think the worst of it will stay to our west and southwest. So maybe Fairfield County really gets in on the action here, Litchfield County, but everybody has a chance to see that for sure. Thoughts tonight for a concert in Queens, New York. Oh, that's going to be tough. The problem is like once this rain starts, it's going to stick around for a minute. So it's not like a quick hitter and then it's gone. This evening, it's probably likely going to train, and that's where it's bringing us that potential threat for some flooding, if that happens, of course. So again, first round, 11 a.m. to 2, that is kind of a quick hitter. But then we have a teeny break And here comes kind of the main round here. So for Queens specifically, New York is a little bit further south, so they could potentially get in a little bit before it really starts up late at night. Something to keep in mind for sure. Just make sure you have ways to get alerts and make sure you have a plan in place in case things go south. But yeah, so that's kind of, yeah, that might be tough. I know Saturday plans, it's a little tough. Since I'm in Stanford, can you comment as to why so many strong storms lose their punch as they approach the sound? I think that has well, not always. It depends on a lot of different things, but the issue with the sound is that, we could have a northwest wind here in Connecticut, but right where the shore meets the water, it's a different wind direction. And when that collides, the air, some of the thunderstorms don't know what to do because it's a big change in the air mass there. So that would be my 2 cents. Is it going to thunder in Fairfield? I definitely think so later on today. In Fairfield, how bad do you think it's going to get? I do think storms could be pretty tough. A lot of people have been kind of talking about the storms 2 weeks ago. I don't think we can compare the two just because those storms fired out of nowhere and they had so much instability to work with, as we talked about just about 10 minutes ago, probably. I think it was like 5-10 minutes ago. They had so much energy to work with. We have less instability, but we do have some really good wind that we're working with here. So I think any storms that do form, they would have that to kind of propel them. Can we please request the wind to stay away from Plainville? Robin, if you are able to get through to Mother Nature, let me know how that goes, because I would also like to put in some requests. She's not listening to me because I am done with the storms. I'm done. I want a good rain, but storms, yeah, not a fan for sure. From the radar I looked at, it appeared the storms could be more south of Hartford. I think all of us have a good chance. Again, radar, this is just an estimate. I think a lot of people don't realize that the future satellite and radar I've got in front of you right now, that's just an estimate as to what one computer model is potentially guessing for. Genuinely, that's what it is. So it might not look exactly like this. It might look exactly like this. It might look like something similar. I do think Hartford, even if the bulk of the storm doesn't move over you, you're still going to be really close to that action, and storms, they can pivot at any second. So always important to not be humbled by Mother Nature. I have made that mistake before. She's going to do her thing. Pray, I always say, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. And that's what we're dealing with. And again, none of this is to scare you today. We're just preparing you in case things like this happen. So that's what we're watching. What about Westbrook? Westbrook, yeah, we're getting some storms in there. I think, honestly, the biggest concern I've got for the shoreline is going to be some of this heavy rain just dumping for a couple of hours. And that's where kind of a flood threat comes into play here. If we see a really heavy thunderstorm just kind of stall over a certain area for a while, that creates a lot of issues, a lot of ponding, potentially some minor flooding. And think about, we haven't seen a lot of rain in a couple of days. Our grounds aren't saturated. They don't really know what to do with all of that rain, especially if it comes all at once. So that can create some issues as well, some standing water in roads. So that's another thing that I'm monitoring. And again, this is all precautious things. Is this for sure going to happen in your specific town? No. And there's no way of really being able to pinpoint that. But just preparing you, because if Westbrook sees this, maybe, the next town over, wouldn't. So it's just kind of important to be prepared just in case, right? My daughter's flying into Bradley at 9:30 p.m. tonight. All right. Well, unfortunately, the storms would likely still be going on at that point. I do think that storms can happen, that flights, planes can sometimes fly in and land if it's not severe. Hopefully by that point, we'll start to see the severe threat winding down by about 10 p.m. or so. So yeah, I would just encourage your daughter and whoever's picking them up to just monitor the flight status and the radar for sure. What are your thoughts on the storms coming to Bristol? I know Bristol was hard hit a couple weeks ago. I do think they, again, also have a threat for some strong storms. I don't think hail is our biggest threat here. maybe some small hailstones, but nothing like the 3-inch ones that we saw a few weeks ago. Wind, that was a huge, factor 2 weeks ago. I unfortunately think that's another one, as well as heavy rain. And again, I don't want to scare you, which that is not what I'm doing at all. But a couple of spin up tornadoes are possible in this region. I think the worst of it, the best chance is going to be between about New York City and Philadelphia, but we're close to that, so we will keep an eye on it. Westport, definitely still going to be Westport, Glastonbury, definitely still going to be monitoring those storms here. Again, we can't. I wish we could pinpoint it and say, Glastonbury, you'll see it, but Hartford won't. It's not that easy, unfortunately. I do think everybody should see rain tonight and this afternoon and this evening. But as for like the hard hitting, wind, rain, hail potentially, that's everybody's got the chance. Not everybody will see it, if that makes sense. I wish I could be able to really nail it down for you, but that's unfortunately as best as we can do. We are supposed to fly home to Bradley Airport from Florida at 4 and land at 7. I hope it's safe. 7, we'll be watching it closely. 7 p.m. It could be, you might see a little bit of a delay there, because I do think 7 p.m. is when we've got some storms across the region. So, Jody, just make sure you watch your flight status. Remember, I get really frustrated when my travel plans are messed up, but at the end of the day, it's all about being safe, right? And you'll get home when you do. Waterbury, New Haven County. Just tuning in now. We're talking about some midday rain. Let's answer some questions. Waterbury, New Haven County, truthfully, the entire state has pretty much the same threat. I think the worst of the threat stays to our west and southwest. So maybe, Litchfield, Fairfield County really, and New Haven County, potentially the strongest storms have more of a likelihood to set up there, but that doesn't mean that it will just be in those regions. All of the state have a good chance to see those storms. Let's answer some more questions here. Is this going to be as bad as the July 4th storms? You can't really compare the two, as I mentioned, just because those storms, we had so much instability and energy to work with. So those storms formed, and they formed quickly. They popped, created some really, really large hailstones. Today is kind of the opposite. We don't have as much instability, but we've got a lot of wind shear that could keep these storms kind of training for a little bit. So that might answer the question here that says, are these storms going to be overrunning the same location for a longer duration, or is it more of a line that moves quick? I think they're going to stick around for a bit. I don't think it's a quick moving system for the most part. And again, I'll go ahead and show this to you one more time. I do want to keep an eye, though, on the current situation, because we do have some storms pretty close by. Kind of going back to this here, I again want to show you the two things that we're monitoring for you. So you see this cluster right here that's putting itself together over Pennsylvania. That's heading due east. That's going to be here within the next about 1 to 2 hours. Then we've got this line that's kind of starting to merge with the other line. Is a kind of an interesting system here for sure. But from Toronto up to Ottawa, that is a line of thunderstorms that will be the second wave, the main wave for this evening. So here's the first one, little break, then the second one. So I'm going to go ahead and step right through. So to answer that question, it's more of a longer duration because we've got a lot of moisture. Our systems are not as quickly moving. And then somebody else asked, midday rains, not much now. We are kind of expecting, a couple of storms during the midday hours. So starting up by about noon. Oh, this is a brand new model run. So this is our first time tracking this. So let's see what's changed. Okay, so they're still expecting those storms here, maybe starting up by about noon or so. Couple little boomers. I don't think the worst of it is during the midday hours, if that makes sense. The worst of it should come this evening. But couple of strong storms still possible from about, let's say, 12 to 3. Then you see a nice break after about 6 p.m. or so. Here comes the main line. You'll notice this system is very unorganized, which is a good thing. We don't want it to be organized because then it has a little bit more energy to work with here. But the concern is that because of how slowly it's moving, we could see some really heavy rains train over the same area over and over, creating some really hefty rainfall totals. I'm just going to check with with the Storm Prediction Center to make sure I'm not missing any new information, and it does not look like we are, so that's good. What other questions do we have? Somebody said, two great questions. What time should we expect the worst of it preparing at work? Ryan, thanks so much. We can expect the worst of it. So I do expect a couple of storms between about noon and 3 p.m. Then the worst of it will likely come after about 6 or 7 p.m. and through the evening hours. Then we dry out after midnight. So the worst of it comes later this evening, but a couple storms possible before then. Will this affect the Canada fires? That's a great question. I do think it helps us a lot. With the fires in Canada and northern Minnesota, they're so massive that this rain won't really help to put it out completely. But for here, it will kind of wash out that smoke. So that is good news for sure. New to the area, is this type of summer pattern normal, or is there more instability storm-wise this season? No, that's a good question. I think each storm is different. Each system setup is different, right? So 2 weeks ago, for the July 4th storms, a lot of instability. That was actually, honestly, I've only lived here for almost 2 years. I grew up in the Midwest, where there's always readily available storm ignition. I do think that 2 weeks ago, the storm instability that we had was elevated for this area. Today, this is kind of what we're used to working with for sure. Flying into Bradley at 10 p.m., would my flights be canceled? 10 p.m. is when we still have a couple of storms around. But hopefully by then, I'm hoping the severe threat would start to diminish. So it could go either way. Michael, unfortunately, I'm not in charge of flights, but I would just keep an eye on that for sure. Also, for flights, it's always important. Monitor your layovers. If you've got a layover in New York, Philly, DC, Albany, Boston, those could be impacted as well. So something to really pay attention to, because I mean, a lot of the Northeast is dealing with this, even over towards like Cleveland, Pittsburgh, those regions there. So if you have any layovers in the Northeast, keep an eye on that for sure. Are there any watches and warnings in effect? Not that I am aware of. I haven't gotten any notifications, which I usually do. I'm just going to make sure, though. Yeah, we've got an air quality alert. That is about it, though, until midnight tonight, and this rain should help out. So no watches as of now, but I could see that changing. Will there be hail? You know, I do think a couple of hailstones could be able to sneak through, but the hail threat is very low in comparison to what it was 2 weeks ago, and in comparison to the other threats that we have. Unfortunately, strong winds are kind of our main threat here, and heavy rain. Flying into Westchester around 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Unfortunately might be a little tough there in Westchester. So I would just make sure you're watching for any flight delays and be prepared to pivot if need be. Just because I know that there will be storms and rain happening. So even if you do fly in, it would be probably a little bumpy. But of course, if there's a severe threat, then they would not fly in. So just keep an eye on your flight status for sure. Is it safe to drive to New Hampshire today? Yeah, I think it's safe to drive to New Hampshire. I would just get it done early. I would try to be there. I would try to leave here by... I'd leave here by noon if you can, just to be safe. You might run into a couple of storms, but they shouldn't be anything too bad. The worst of it should come later on this evening. Yeah. All right. These are great questions. I appreciate all of you. I hope I didn't forget much of anything. How's East Windsor looking later? I do think storms will start to fire up later on this afternoon. So again, let's just kind of go through everything. Here's a look at your severe weather threats. Strong wind and heavy rain, the biggest threats here. That picture in there is not updated because we have the new SPC outlook, which includes all of Connecticut in the slight risk. But heavy rain, strong winds are the major threats, the largest threats. A tornado and even some flooding possible if storms can really get fired up. So that's kind of the worst case scenario. It's still possible. It's lower, but it's still possible. And then hail is a lesser threat, but still there. Not a zero, but it is smaller. East Windsor, Bristol in Lake Compound. We'll keep an eye on that for sure. Unfortunately, I mean, everybody in the state has honestly an equal chance for severe weather. You see on your screen here, all of us under a level 2 risk. The darker red, like the maroon color to our west, that is a higher threat. So potentially Western Connecticut could, have the best threat to see the worst of it in Connecticut. But I do think the worst of it genuinely does stay kind of in between like New York and Philly. That seems to be the bullseye there. Okay, we've got some really good questions coming in. With climate change happening, are these storms going to get worse? Climate change, that provides more moisture in our air. And as temperatures heat up, that gives more energy for storms to work with. So, yeah, I think a lot of storms could be a little bit, worse going forward. But storms have always been really tough. But it's definitely something that we're watching. Not like a huge spike in that, if that's what you're asking, but something that it's definitely a trend that we're monitoring. Question, what pattern are we currently in? We're in El Nino. El Nino has just started, and actually it should technically, what it's supposed to do is make for a less active Atlantic hurricane season, which we're seeing so far, but of course peak hurricane season hasn't happened yet. The big impacts with El Nino just starting up, we're not really seeing impacts of it yet here. I think this winter will be interesting, and we'll have more talk on that as it gets closer. So, okay, let's see what some more questions are. So it does say tornado possible, but no watches. So does this mean with the cold front and everything happening, an unexpected tornado could form? Claire, that's a good question. No watches yet. I do think that the National Weather Service, the Storm Prediction Center, they don't want to put out watches until closer to like 3 to 6 hours ahead of time. And I think the worst of the threat comes after about 6 p.m. So if we do see any watches today, I don't think they'd come until a little bit later on. So nothing as of yet. They kind of want to get another sense of some more model runs to get an idea of the setup here. There is a chance a spin-up tornado or two could form across southern New England, definitely over in parts of New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. So we'll keep an eye on it. But just because there's no watches doesn't mean there isn't still that threat. If there are watches, they'll likely come in the next couple of hours. Could the wind be strong enough to pick up the debris from the previous storm? It's possible. It's possible. Hopefully, with 2 weeks have gone by, I think a lot of it has been hopefully picked up. But yeah, anything that, is maybe a little sensitive after the storms 2 weeks ago, could be, vulnerable to these storms today. So that's a good question. Is next week going to be all rain on vacation? Well, if your vacation's in Connecticut, we do have rain chances starting up again Tuesday afternoon through Wednesday. So we'll keep an eye on that for sure. Yeah, these are great questions. Yeah, you guys are great. If you have anything else you would like to know, please let me know. I can also show you the 10-day forecast here. Also, I think it's also important to note that golf is on NBC all day, I think until the early afternoon. If storms are starting to pop, we will cut in if we need to. We'll try to keep golf on the side and so that people can still watch while we've got some storms happening. I'm going to be here until, so basically the storm threat, we've got 2 rounds. I'm here for the first round, so that should be here through the early afternoon. I don't think anything too crazy should happen from those storms. The worst of it should come this evening, where Chief Meteorologist Ryan Hanrahan will be in, and he will be here to really track a lot of those things, to track that out for you. I think that's when the worst of it will come on in. All right, we got more questions here. What's the best beach day next week in Connecticut? I'll tell you right now, Monday looks fantastic. Thursday and Friday look pretty good as well. I would just say Tuesday and Wednesday, yeah, not looking the best. Let's talk about Bristol, Newington, and Kim asked, is this looking like the level of damage we saw with the July 4th storms? Let me answer Bristol and Newington first. Everybody's got the same threat here. There's a chance, I mean, you can't, unfortunately, you can't pinpoint exactly where like specific things will happen, because we saw last time Bristol got hammered, but Newington kind of got spared by the worst of it, I should say. Newington did still get storms 2 weeks ago, but Bristol, I mean, got the 3-inch hail, super strong winds. Everybody's got a threat. The worst of it after 6 p.m. today, but don't be alarmed. You might see a couple of storms before then in the late morning, early afternoon hours. I know a lot of people did lose power as well. What time does it look like storms will be coming into Stratford? I think Stratford, you're closer, you're at the shore. It might be a little bit later on in the evening, maybe closer to like 8 or 9 p.m. So you might be able to get a couple more activities in before it really starts up. So Kim asks, is this looking like the level of damage we saw with the July 4th storms? I gotta mention this earlier. It's really hard to compare the two because they are two very, very different systems. And I think they're going to create damage in different ways, or at least they have the potential to do so. And I'm going to do my best to explain this here. This is Meteorology 101. This is what we learned like day one of school. There are 3 ingredients you need for thunderstorms. You need moisture, lift, and instability. Moisture, that's your elevated humidity, right? That's the rain that we've got nearby, right? You need rain for a thunderstorm. Lift, that is typically our fronts, warm fronts, cold fronts, something to ignite those storms. Instability is how the storms grow. Heat and sunshine will contribute to that. Let's talk about today. We only have 2 of those ingredients, moisture and lift. Instability is pretty low. We're not seeing a lot of, it's not hot outside. We're not seeing a lot of sunshine, right? But we have more than enough moisture and lift that if storms can fire up, they will have something to work with. Now, go back to 2 weeks ago, we had way too much moisture, way too much instability, moisture, and also lift. We kind of had all 3 ingredients, especially instability. So that's why those storms were able to get so large and produce that hail, really strong wind gusts here. So to answer your question, I don't want to compare the two. I don't think that damage should be as insane as it was 2 weeks ago, but it's not out of the question. And I think we would be dealing a little bit more with, say, heavy rain and strong winds as opposed to like that hail threat. If we have tickets to an event at the XL Center at 7 p.m., should we stay home and give up the tickets? Well, I do not want to be blamed for anything, any changes that you make, because it's you're in charge of your own destiny. However, I would maybe make the call a little bit later, but I don't think a lot is going to be able to make it today, like events. I know a lot of events have already postponed to Sunday. Definitely would be an indoor day for me. It's also just not nice outside. I don't know if you've stepped outside. It's smoky, rain on the way. And also when it's not raining this afternoon and evening, it's going to be very humid and muggy. So just not the nicest day to enjoy, if that makes sense. So you do with that what you will. I'm not going to make a decision for you because it's your decision, but do with that information what you will. I also wanted to point out there is a flood watch in parts of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and that also includes the 5 boroughs of New York City because they are expecting a lot of rain to train for this system. So yeah, these are great questions. Thank you all. This has been really lovely. to get to do this because our shows aren't on right now because of golf. Oh, Sherry, okay, the event's indoors, but I'm wondering about driving. If it's indoors, should be okay. Hopefully wherever you go, XL Center, that's inside. Sorry, brain fart there. I've been up since 2:30. Driving, I would say maybe get there a little early. If you can get there by about 6 p.m., should be okay. Just watch any storms that are moving in because I do think in Hartford they would likely start up by about 7. So just try to beat it. And then hopefully, wherever the XL Center hopefully has, protocols in place in case the worst happens. I don't think it would hopefully not come to that, but, it's good to be prepared just in case. And then driving home, you might run into some rain, but I think after about 10 p.m., we should start to see that threat go down. So hopefully there's that. Okay, I'm DJing a wedding in Waterbury outside under a large tent and have another DJ working under a tent in Waterford. Oh, yikes. I know a couple weddings that are happening today. So anything indoors would definitely be best. A tent is tough, and maybe try to, find something a little more sturdy, if possible, or at least if all HE double hockey sticks breaks loose, that you can go somewhere inside, somewhere sturdy, just in case. So good luck. I know it's wedding season. It's it's the season where we want to be outside, right? And it's these darn weekends that keep getting spoiled. But at least it's just Saturday. Tomorrow looks fantastic. All right, I am gonna let you go here in just a second, just so I can kind of get the latest data and make sure I keep everybody updated on air online. There's the current setup for us. Yes, and I'll end with that, Kim. What are the 2 windows for storms today? You said an earlier one and a second one this evening. Yes. Time frame is going to be here. Let me go ahead and zoom in just to see if how close those are getting to us. Yeah, they're getting close. So first round, honestly, these storms right now for the first round are not severe. They could potentially change, but a couple of storms getting a little bit stronger. First round is from about now, 10 a.m. to roughly 2 p.m. A little bit of a break. Then it kind of starts back up again after about 6 p.m. And once it starts up at 6 p.m., I think that's more widespread, potentially likely going to be stronger, more severe, heavy rain, all of the modes of severe weather, right? So that's HE double hockey sticks. You guys like that? Cold front, more straight line winds. Yeah, there's always the potential for straight line winds. I think we could see potentially a little rotation put itself together if all the ingredients come into play here. So there unfortunately is still a threat for a couple isolated tornadoes. I do think most of that stays to the west, but could clip parts of the state. So we'll keep an eye on that. But again, first round now till about 2 p.m. Second round, let's say 6 p.m. to midnight. I think that's a good time frame there. And if you don't see storms the first round, which I think most of us will at least see a little bit of rain, you'll definitely see it the second round, and you'll hear it. It'll likely be a little bit louder as I'm trying to sleep ahead for tomorrow morning. But Chief Meteorologist Ryan Hanrahan will be here. He's ready to go for evening storm coverage. So thank you all so much. We've been on here for 45 minutes now because you all have had fantastic questions. So yeah, make sure you stay safe. And again, this is all to prepare you, not to scare you. Just giving you the heads up of what we're monitoring. Nothing has happened yet. We're at 10:08 in the morning on July 18th, Saturday. Today's my dad's birthday. I'll have to call him after this. I already gave him his present though, so that's good. But yeah, we're just keeping an eye on the potential. And we'll let you know. I think heavy rain and strong winds are definitely the major threats here that I think most of us will see at times, especially later on this evening. So keep it here with NBC Connecticut. We appreciate you guys very much. Got my Taylor Swift cup here. We're ready to go. But thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Get out and enjoy before the rain sets in, and especially before the storms come up this evening. If you want to be able to enjoy your day and not stare at the radar all day, keep the notifications on your phone. NBC Connecticut, if you turn on your location, turn on notifications, it will tell you when rain's about to start in your region. It's a great tool. People said happy birthday to my dad. He will be excited for that for sure. I'll let him know. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I'll give him a call later. But of course, we're going to keep an eye on the storms, keep you all safe. We will break into on air if anything starts to fire up. Online will definitely be here as well. Our website, on social media, everything. So if anything, when anything starts to move in, we'll let you know. But enjoy your Saturday. Be safe. We will see you later.